Sportsbook.
Are we not entertained? How is that? How is that for a super Sunday on this superb owl kind of day? Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know people probably have plans. I have a lot of plans. All my friends are just out of view here, so I'm going to go join a party in a minute. But hey, that was a fun game. We saw a lot of cool things. We have a lot of things to get through. We have a very special guest. Actually, one of my favorite people in hockey, not just because he's an excellent skills coach. He's just a genuinely great guy. So we have Tim Turk, shooting guru. Ask any NHL player, they'll mention Tim Turk. Just with the Canadiens, he's worked with Pacioretty, Gallagher, and Kirby Dach. So, I don't know if you saw the picture on Twitter there, but that's when he was with Gallagher, his shoulder was a little lower, but with Dach, he's got to, bring it up. But either way, very intelligent man, and he's got all the expertise that a team like the Montreal Canadiens need, because they need shooting talent. So we're going to get into that in just one moment. Salut tout le monde. Hi, King in the North. Hi, Miss Epica. Trizak. Kay's here, always. Claire, I'm assuming, is here. But I just want to say hi to everybody and thank you so much for joining us. The Canadiens win 6-2. Raphaël Harvey-Pinard, what a story. And how about that work from Kirby Dach? We're going to talk about that trade because it's starting to become apparent. Kirby Dach is the guy that the Canadiens thought Kotkaniemi could be. And I'm not trying to trash Kotkaniemi, but, you wanted a big guy standing in front, making space, tipping pucks, little bit of a mean side, which we've seen some Kirby. So it has been fantastic. Ooh, hello. Hi. Dave Poulin? Is it Dave Poulin? No, Dave Poulin wasn't born in 93. Unless, was that the year that he won his Selkie? Either way. Hi, Claire. How's it going? Rameli, how's it going? Good to see you back too. Let's go ahead and get through our sponsors here, our fantastic sponsors, the reason we're all here. We're going to do that, and then we're going to bring Tim in just one moment. So if you have any questions about shooting, because really, I'll stop rambling, then I'll bring in Tim. I'm just too excited. All right, wanna bet? You can do it. Oh, sorry. Give me 1 second here. We're going to restart because I didn't actually do that properly. Aha! Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction Canada Sportsbook. We all know there's a pretty big football game today. The NHL season is in full swing. So with Sports Interaction, you can bet pregame, live in play, and there's also a ton of prop bets. So it's made for Canadians by Canadians. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Ontario only, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring in Tim, who's been very patient and is always fun to talk to. Mr. Tim Turk, how's it going, Turkey?
Do me, holy smokes. You know what? The first thing that comes to mind is how are you not on the radio with a voice like that?
Well, it's because that I don't stop talking, and then eventually they have to kick me out. That's the issue.
Yeah. Your throat gets so dry you start spitting sparks.
I'm not joking. I bring in multiple liquids when I do these things, but no. The trick is to smoke since you're 12 years old. That's.
Well, you know what, man? I can't thank you enough for having me. Giving knowledge to anyone out there, or just to answer questions so that we can clear some minds is what this is all about.
No, exactly. And Tim, it's because when I spoke to you, for those that didn't have a chance to read it, when I was with the Canadiens, Tim spent a lot of time explaining to me why Cole Caulfield was so excellent. And this was before Cole Caulfield really hit his breakout. There was actually criticism, but you were talking about just the way he was holding the puck, where he was hiding it, how he was shooting from the hip. And it was one of the most fascinating discussions I've ever had because I was learning so much. Not that I wasn't an elite goal scorer, Tim. I won the Gloucester Ball Hockey Scoring Championship 2 years in a row in 1994 and 1995. But let's and we're gonna get some questions from the fans here. But where are you right now? You're out east, right?
Yeah, well, ironically, I met Dan Lacroix when he was in the affiliate organization for the Habs in Hamilton in the A-League. When Guy Boucher was coaching, and we just all the coaches, you stick together. If you do a good job, and things, to me, you need to adapt to what the coaches are doing, whether you're teaching skating or shooting. So Coach Dan, he brings me out here a couple of times a year to work on the fine tuning of shooting with his players, and I always look forward to working with anybody that wants help.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Dan Lacroix actually was I think the last job he had with the Canadiens was assistant coach, right? In the late 90s,
Yeah.
was that it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then he went on to, as we know, Tampa Bay Lightning, well, he was with the Philadelphia Flyers. He's got some really good stories. Some of them we can share, some of them we can't. But he's a great coach, because, and one of the things about coaches nowadays, and there's a fine line between a coach who wants to give ownership up to someone else based on what they cannot do with their knowledge or what they cannot teach. And Dan's one of those coaches who's like, hey, I can't teach him how to skate, can't teach him how to shoot. I know what my systems are, what my tactics are, but I need someone to come in and make them do what they need to do when they're in the situation that I need to put them into.
So bringing in experts, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, to me, it's a breath of fresh air, because there are some coaches out there who are like, hey, I got my plan, I got my team, and this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to sink or swim. Yeah. But most of the coaches now are evolving, so that's good.
Well, they do. Okay, Trizak, someone in our chat wants to know, if you can't help him take a shot, can you help him shoot his shot on his crush? So do you have any dating tips related to hockey there, Tim?
Yeah, make sure you have a deep wallet. But yeah, I'm kidding about that. Yeah, no, I can't help with dating. No, that was like even more than 30 years ago for me.
So then that's what you'd have to bring an expert in, right? That's what you do.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to Kirby Dach in just one moment, but can you kind of explain to the people in the chat what your job is per se? Now, I know that teams bring you in. You've worked with just a ton of NHL players. One of my favorite shooters, Pacioretty. What do you do when they bring them in? Is it just they give you carte blanche to kind of do what they want, or do they get you to kind of fulfill a certain assignment?
Kind of all the above, but mostly what will happen is nowadays analytics are big. So, the video doesn't lie. And when these players get into certain habitual patterns and they get into situations, they choose to do things. And one of my jobs is to not just teach or fine tune or modify what they do and how they think, but it's also to let them know what they do well. Okay. And that's when you bring up Pacioretty's release. I mean, he's got one of the most, people don't understand this. When you pick up snow off the ground and you do this to it, you're compacting and you're kind of condensing things. And Pacioretty, he doesn't have to do that with his puck when he's taking a shot. It's already condensed. It's such a small, compact area. His hands are so, like the quick twitch muscle fibers and the wrist action that he has. Like you said in the intro, it comes off his hip, so it's hard for goalies to read.
Yeah, well, and that's something that we're seeing from guys like Cole Caulfield. Now, can you explain what you meant? Because at one point you essentially said he was a gunslinger, right? You talked about Cole Caulfield, shooting off the hip. So what does that mean really in the actual action of shooting?
So partly, there's a lot of different criteria, but one of the main ones to help everybody understand is the puck position versus where it is in the body position. So let's say these are the feet here, and if the puck's way out wide, then the arm is out wide. Okay. So when the arm's out wide, it's like a trigger, or it telegraphs what's going to happen when goalies.
You're giving away your shot.
Yeah, so exactly. And the closer the biscuit or the puck is to the body, the tighter your arms are. So when your arms are in tight, it camouflages. The motion patterns camouflage. So that's why I essentially call it like shooting from the hip, because the closer it is to the hip, the more camouflaged it is.
Which is something that we're seeing with all the young players these days. Even the Canadiens have a prospect called Sean Farrell, and he does that too. Or almost, it used to be the elite guys, right? The Austin Matthews that could do that, the Connor. But we're seeing it's a lot more common. Do you think the young players now are just better shooters because there's more information out there?
Absolutely, and I feel like the more information we put out, the better it is for the young players who are the shooters. But they also aspire, and when they see something that's really good and really positive and effective, they try to mimic that. So, for instance, you bring up Matthews, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I want to shoot like Matthews."
What a shot!
No matter, or the new up and coming. We know this new up and coming person is Conor Bedard, and I'm telling you, I feel like the comparison between an athlete like Matthews, who is completely, I want to say, fine-tuned. He's already set, and Bedard is kind of very similar to him. And there's subtle changes and differences in what they do, but he wants to aspire to be like him. where I'm like splitting the word out saying, you keep doing what you're doing so people will aspire to want to be like you as well, which is good. But that's what they do. That's good.
Well, I mean, I remember speaking to Caulfield before he got into the NHL, and he was saying he was watching Austin Matthews and Joe Pavelski, who's probably one of the most underrated shooters in the NHL. And so it just goes to show that he was the best shooter outside of the NHL, and he was still studying. You know, he knew that he had to get better. We have a question here from Kay, who's always in our chat. She's amazing. She wants to know, and I don't know if you've actually worked with him, but do you have any thoughts about Shea Weber's thunderous shot? Because to me, Shea Weber, he didn't have to extend it very high, but he still got so much thud out of it. And I don't know if you know what I mean, Turkey, when I say thud. You know, it's just that heavy thud when it hits the pads. So how would you describe Shea Weber's mechanism?
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind right away. And like first, like Webby's one of those guys who he and another player in the old days, Al McInnes, they made me think of this catchphrase, and I say less load, more explode. So what happens is these guys now, the bottom hand on the player's stick is a pushing one, and that creates force. The top hand is a pulling one, and that creates quickness. So players who are bottom hand dominant, more pushing dominant, create more force in the shot. Players who are more of a top hand pulling action, that's more quickness and velocity related. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to get these players to meet in the middle. We want them to 50% push and 50% pull so that there's the deception and the power all and the quickness all combined together. But Shea Weber's that guy who has a big downward thud, big downward force more than an upward pull, and that creates all this force into the puck, so it moves the goalie when it hits him. Yeah,
well, or it just goes right through him. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I always thought that the guy he was traded for, PK Subban, he had a thunderous shot, but he would crank it all the way to Trois-Rivières every time he'd shoot. You know, it would go over his head, almost Pavel Bure style. We're not seeing a lot of that these days. I can't remember the last time I saw an Al Iafrate style, you know, crank it up type move. Do you think the big clapper is on its way out?
Well, you know what? I do. I think the fully loaded one, like I call it loading in ranges, you know, like low range, mid range to a full range, but an overloaded or an over range when the hands go way up like that, and you don't have time anymore in the game to do that. And that's the part of the game I feel is diminishing, is that time to get the ability to load so far away from the puck to try and feel like you're generating more power when you don't really need to. But I feel like the timing, like the evolution of the game and how fast it is. If you look at percentages, do you remember last playoffs last year in the Stanley Cup Finals when Nathan MacKinnon got a cross-ice pass and like the old school Rick Five or Steve Shutt across the blue, wind up and take a clapper.
Yeah.
So MacKinnon gets a slap shot goal. I can't remember what game it was in. It was game 3 or game 4, something like that. He gets his slap shot goal. The next day I'm on the ice with 10 and 12-year-olds, and the coach comes over and says, "Did you see that goal MacKinnon got last night?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "Well, can you teach my 10 and 12-year-olds how to take those slap shots?" And I'm like, that's the only slap shot goal he's got. But everybody sees it. Everyone sees that a slap shot can go in. It was like one time, and like slap shots per game in motion, 5-on-5, are like just over 1%
that they actually go in.
That they actually take one, They take one. It's like slap shots taken per game. It's just between 1% and 2%.
Really? Wow. Is that recent? Because I feel like 10, 20 years ago, it was closer to, 5-10% at least.
Yeah. So it's the speed of the game. It's the accuracy part. And there's so much different criteria now how the game's evolved. And all the listeners out there, my job is to, if a player's favorite shot and they feel successful is some sort of impact slap shot, or my job is to fine tune it so it's just not so far. Like you brought up PK. Like PK, I've been working with him for years. And
it's kind of funny how high he cranks it, I'll admit. But he gets velocity. He gets velocity on it.
I kind of thought when he retired, he was going to go get a job in an apple orchard, like picking apples. But I'm kidding. But that was his style. His style was to fully load up, and we had to try and fine tune that. And then he got to a good point, and then he left Montreal, and then that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah, well, there's another guy that we're seeing on the Canadiens this year. I don't know if you had the chance to watch the Canadiens very often, or if you've worked with him or his brother, but Justin Barron. He's one of the few Canadians that can actually take a slap shot, but he does it so quickly, right? Tim, he's shooting low. He's not shooting for a goal. I think would that be more accurate to say the slap shot now is to lead to other scoring chances? Is that really its value?
100%. Like the one thing is anything that's, if you look at dimensions on the rink and you take areas and you kind of divide them up like good coaches do. Mm-hmm. Anything that's above the face-off circles and below the blue line, if you're going to have a cross ice lateral pass received to a slap shot or any type of shot release, we got to make sure that we're not expecting it to go in. If you have a coach that's expecting a shot over the tops of the circles or whatever that we'll call the low point mark. Yeah. There's a midway point mark and a top point mark where the players have their feet outside the blue, and then they can still keep the puck inside and shoot. But I mean, if someone's expecting that shot to go in from there, we just want to get it through and then have a plan. If it's on net, on target, or you're strategic with it, you're going to get a second chance. So you're right. We want all those shots from far out, all those clappers to hit the goalie and come back.
For those that are just joining us, we're speaking with shooting guru Tim Turk, and he's one of the people I've learned the most from. I've had a chance to speak to a lot of intelligent people in hockey, but Tim it's the fine points with shooting, which is so important nowadays. So Tim's worked with Pacioretty, Gallagher, and Kirby Dach, which we'll get to in just one moment. Kirby's been having quite the season, but I want to talk about, Miss Epica brings up, what about Conor McDavid? Let's say you get invited to the Oilers. Do you just say, hi Conor, how's it going? And then go work with the other guys, or?
Well, that'd be a nice reunion, because Conor played he played obviously always a year or two up when he was growing up, and that minor hockey association, the Toronto Marlies out of the Toronto area, he was part of that organization, and I've been with them for a long, long time. So I've seen him and been on the ice with him numerous times. But the funny thing about him is his dynamic thought process and his cognitive thought processes and decision making and ability to do things with confidence is unmatched. And what I mean by that is, he knows that, and it was kind of similar to a guy named, you remember Kovalev, not Kovalchuk, but Kovalev?
Yeah.
The puck's this big, and it's that thick. So Conor McDavid's like, there's no reason why I can't put it where I want to. It'll fit through a guy's tuck, his blade. If I got to put it through there, I'm going to do my best so I can get it on the other side and have an opportunity to produce some sort of offensive output for my team or myself. So he's so confident with that while his feet are moving.
Yeah, it's that he does it in with speed, right? Going like it's there's a big difference between handling the puck, stationary, and doing it at 4,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. And skating coaches are like, they're looking at him going, he's not the way to look at when you're trying to do stride efficient skating, but he's the only person that could do that many crossovers laterally
and keep
laterally going linear laterally. Like sometimes we joke, some of us coaches are joking. I'm like, whenever I see him go, like, let's call it linear, but he's going lateral. He's everyone knows he crosses over. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the local grocery store. I'm gonna grab a head of lettuce, a cucumber, some onions, and some mushrooms and whatever else, and throw them under McDavid's feet, and we're gonna have a salad.
Nice little salad.
Yeah, but he's gonna have a goal.
Well, that's the thing, is that he pulls it off. Was he that dominant at like 12 years old? You could tell, that it was generational at that age.
Yeah. He was like Vaseline. Like no one could get him. He slithered through everything like a
grease pig out there, right?
Yeah, like his head up, like his vision, like, and there's other players too. There's other players out there that have that kind of vision as well, but
not too many though. I mean, I'd say Nathan McKinnon is maybe close to that in terms of speed and shooting.
Yeah, they're focal points, like, like this peripheral vision stuff and the anticipation levels. You focus on one thing doesn't mean you can't see this over here. But most people, when they focus on one thing and they feel like this thing over here is out of focus, it's not. Everything's in focus. So these guys know how to keep it in focus and use their mind to change whatever they need to do that's going to help them out.
Well, and I mean, the most important thing is the computer between both shoulders, right? So we all know if they're smart, that always helps. We have, the guest, Noel. Our guest is actually Tim Turk. So he has worked with, we were just talking about Conor McDavid, worked with him when he was younger. And last summer you were working with Kirby Dach, right? Tim, was that before the trade or after?
So that picture, I knew we were going to get to that. Yeah. That picture was the day of.
That was the day he got traded to Montreal.
I can't remember the date, but that was he got traded that day. It was like
wasn't that the draft day? Wasn't it draft day that it happened? I believe it was on the draft, wasn't it? Was not July 1st or something or
It was close to that. Okay. It was cool, but I had him and a few other players on the ice, and his brother was on the ice as well. And it's funny because he went into the locker room, and then all the phones start lighting up, everything's going, and I'm going, I knew it. And we went back out on the ice after they cleaned the ice, and I was like, well, he goes, Montreal, Turkey, here I come. Here I come. I'm going. He's such a quiet kid. He just wants to, everything that he does is on the ice. Like his examples to the other kids, like he didn't have to show up with, like he was an NHL bona fide player at 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And, there's all these American League kids. His younger brother was there at training, and he's like, I'm coming to work on my shot with this guy. And that's what he did. And he came, and I can tell you, like, the things, my introduction to shooting is to have a good foundation. Like what your body does before, during, and after a shot is sometimes more important than the location of the puck or the result of it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, what do I need to work on? A hip position and a shoulder position. Everyone knows when your shoulders go back when you shoot, your body's going to be unstable. So good shooters, in my opinion, look like they explode out of their chest. Mm-hmm. So I just got him to get his hips to go back, and he never shot with 2 feet on the ice. He was always a single leg shooter. Now, did you see Harris's? Someone
mentioned it in the chat about Harris. They wanted us to bring up Harris too. Yeah.
So his second goal, like I got a bunch of text messages. His second goal was the actual formation that I introduced to players when I first worked with them, because it's the most successful way to release a puck and produce offensive output. It's not the only way to, but it's the most successful way. So if you're a lefty, like we had talked about before, your left leg goes back. So he shielded the puck. Like I only had like a 6-second video, but he shielded the puck, dropped his left leg back, and released the puck off his hip all at the same time. Kind of like Austin Matthews does, but he did it in traffic against pressure.
Which is just phenomenal. I did want to bring that up at one point, but my question is, should these defensemen, given that, for example, Harris scored 2 goals today, the Canadiens have actually been getting a little bit of offense from the back end, but their biggest issue has been the lack of offense from the blue line. Do you think that perhaps defensemen, since now they're activating a little more often, they have to produce more at 5-on-5 than they used to? Do you think they should be working on their shots a little more often as well?
Yeah, I do. 100%. Everyone should be, and the funny thing is, I don't mean to jump ahead of anything here, but
go for it.
But, the way your tool works, like when we bring up Caulfield, mm-hmm. His stick matches his technique so well. Some players, it's not about what their technique's doing. It just could be a minor subtle curvature change, a lie change, a flex change, a height change, something like that's going to help them to build that confidence and flatten out the puck when it flies through the air. Yeah. And when we throw a frisbee, you guys, we know if we throw a frisbee, if it doesn't spin, it don't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. It just, like you're skipping a rock across the water. We got to get the puck to spin as tight as possible, as flat as possible, so it moves. And it just might be a stick thing.
It's funny because I believe Cole Caulfield at one point of practice grabbed Mike Hoffman's stick, and he liked it so much that he kept, I believe that the chat will fix it if it wasn't Mike Hoffman. It was either Hoffman or Dadonov, and he's kept that stick ever since. And that's when he went on his heater to score all those goals. So, it kind of sounds silly, but obviously it's the most important equipment they're working with. So, you know, I guess it's a matter of comfort, or a lot of these guys, it's just because if they score with one, they're going to stick with it. But it shows how much he's scored. I think 90% of his goals in the NHL since he switched his stick. So, you know, it
100%.
goes, yeah. Okay, question here from Trizak, actually, and I want to talk about sticks in a little at length. We'll do that in the third segment about Dach. Is there a difference how a player can or should shoot based on their size? So we have a guy, for example, you're looking at Juraj Slafkovsky, fantastic shot. He could shoot a little more often. Would he have that same type of mechanism if he was 5'6"?
Yes, he would. Yeah, every player that's out there is like a fingerprint. So where the puck starts, where their hands positioning, it could be modified and it could be fine tuned a little bit. But the action of their actual hands. So you know what happened when the puck's being transitioned or shot. I'm not talking a snapper or a clapper. I'm talking about a transitional shot, quick release, like a push, like a somewhat of an old school wrister or a combination of a wrist and a snap, an angle change. But usually the blade starts over the puck, and somewhere, however long it takes for them to shoot it, whatever the distance is, it's different for everybody. The blade goes under the puck, and then it goes back over the puck again. And everyone does that at a different place and a different.
Is that why we're getting wobbles and shots, or is that?
Yes, yeah, because what happens is maybe the puck is too far up on the toe prior to them getting back over it again, so they need to open the toe up on the curve or something like that. But when a puck is wobbling, and the other thing could be this, while I'm thinking about it, you know, like guys like us, we'll take a couple of really good shots, then we'll take the same shot again, and it was an awful one, but it was the same one. We're wondering, what the I just did the same shot. It's because your bottom just hand on the shaft, yeah, you just move it like 2 millimeters, and it makes a difference in the way the kick sticks and or the stick kicks and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's physics, right? So, I mean, yeah,
it's consistency.
I have a question for you. Speaking about, I brought up Slafkovsky. He didn't have tape when he came into the NHL. Now, I know guys used to be obsessive about their tape. They'd spend their, they'd laugh at guys that weren't. But how much of an impact does it make on the shot itself, Tim? I think it's important for passing and to get a little bit of grip. But on an actual shot, is it important to have a nice tape job?
Yeah, my personal opinion is, however much space the puck moves on the blade prior to it leaving the blade, it needs to have a consistent feel.
Okay.
So, there's some players that have tape on the toe, and then the puck will start closer to the heel, and it's a little bit of a different friction. And then it gets to the tape, and the tape grabs the puck because there's little ridges on the face of it, on the edge, and then it does something different. So it needs to be continuous, in my opinion. Needs to be continuous. Got to feel the same from the start to the finish. So that's what you're noticing in these shots, where sometimes they're wobbly, they don't spin as much, and that's because of the tape job. But then, not every player tapes their stick the same. It's like we don't all go to the same guy to get a haircut. We all have our own way of doing things. So what they do with their stick is up to them. I just encourage them to make sure they keep it as consistent as possible, so the puck doesn't have any changes on there. Like there's tape here, no tape, no tape. And then the other thing, I'm just doing an article on white tape versus black tape.
Yeah.
Like in the old days.
Because in the day you would take the puck and you would actually darken your white tape there, right? A little bit before you'd go out.
Yeah, or you use black because you want to camouflage it. But nowadays, Doomy, like the things happen so fast, like the tape doesn't make a difference in the way you're going to score. It's not going to hide anything anymore because it happens so quickly. In the older days, when the sweeping motions, there's so much more space, they're reaching way back. It might be a little bit different, but now there's no change at all with that. I feel like it's a personal thing. What you do with the butt end of your stick, what you do along your shaft, and what you do on the blade is all up to you.
Now, and again, we're gonna jump into Kirby Dach in the next segment, but I have a question for you. My answer is obviously Ally Afraidy, but which player back in the day would have been destroying goalies with these lightweight sticks, with these 2-ounce sticks? Or am I wrong, because a guy like Al MacInnis would have destroyed every single stick every single time he took a shot?
Yeah, it's funny because I love these questions. To me, it doesn't matter if it's a piece of wood, a composite, a graphite, nanotechnology, a piece of metal, or whatever. But everything's like you adjust to what you're using. And to me, it's like wood offers more energy on rubber than composite or graphite does, but it only does it once. So, like McInnes could go out and take his hardest shot ever, but then that's it. He's done. You can still use a stick, but he's not going to get the same energy out of it when he tries to do his hard shot.
Well, especially with the 40 cross checks he gets in right after,
Exactly. Especially if you get in the way. But to me, the sticks, like everyone has an adjustment. The old school guys are like, we got to get our guys wood sticks because they can feel it more. Mm-hmm. But everything can be felt. It's just to me, it's a transition of what's being done and how your stick has to be right for you. You got to be able to flex at a certain rate for certain types of shots. And there's players nowadays that are minimizing their flexes. Like they're going from 75 to 70 because they don't want to change their hands when they're taking shots. There's no time. So they want to be able to get a good result with their hand in one position nowadays. When they do decide to shoot, doesn't mean they keep their hand in the same spot when they're maneuvering, but when they do decide to shoot, they want to keep them close. So all these flex and kick point technologies are all starting to hybrid themselves. There's low kick, mid kick, high kick combination, and stiff blade, soft blade. So what you do and what your tendencies are need to match your stick, and that's where I come in some points to help you. But Gallagher's a good point. Yeah. We added some stuff on his toe, and Bedard, we were doing some stuff with his pattern to kind of close down the.
Are you telling me you made Bedard's shot better? Come on, that's not fair for the rest of the league there, Turkey.
Yeah, but that his work ethic and his his attitude to succeed and how he presents himself is again, it goes unmatched. And when you're acting like you want to be better every single day, then everyone else around you wants to as well.
And you go down the list of some of the most elite athletes of all time, and it's guys that were number one at their position but kept fighting to stay number one. And it just going back to Caulfield back in the day when he was studying all this tape, he was breaking NCAA records, but I remember him telling me, I know that not all these goals will score against NHL goalies, so I have to watch tape and figure out. To me, that was like he's essentially being a hockey nerd, and that's what you need to be. So you go to guys like Patrick Roy, he was the best, but he kept fighting to be the best. Same thing with Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. So it really is. I know it's kind of cliche, but to be the best, you got to stay the best, and you got to work as hard as you did to get there, right? So let's talk about Kirby Dach, because Turkey, this has been just a fun reclamation project. I think, honestly, he was a little hurt by the trade from Chicago. I feel like, I mean, it's never fun to get traded, but I feel like he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this year. And we're seeing it. He's a little more angry. He's a little more intense. So what are you seeing in his from now to when he entered the league? What's the big difference with Dach? Is it opportunity? Is he just kind of coming into his own?
I think it's a combination of everything above, but he realizes, in the situation that he's in right now, like being a Hab, it takes a lot of work on a more positive side than anything. You have to, first of all, you got Brendan Gallagher in that room, and he's the guy. Brendan Gallagher's the guy and I don't mean to deflect off of Kirby for a second here, but Gally was the guy that was like, what was he? Was he a fourth rounder?
Fifth round.
Or fifth? He was
the Vancouver Canucks didn't even go to watch a game, and he was playing with the Vancouver Giants.
Like, so FUCK.
Yeah, now, basically. Yeah, they just didn't give it. Yeah. No.
So I'll never forget. Like I'm sitting down with him, and I'm like, hey man, like, this is your second year. He goes, Turkey. He goes, like I feel like I worked my ass off to sit in this lounge. Mm-hmm. I worked my ass, but you know what? Now that I'm here, guess what?
I got to keep working.
I got to work more. I got to work harder just to stay. Yeah. And that's what his attitude is. And I think he pushes that on, to a lot of the players that come into that locker room. It's like, hey man, like you're turning your actual routine, you're turning your routine of doing things to stay in the NHL, and you're turning it into a ritual because you're watching a guy like Brendan Gallagher. And that's what Kirby Dach does. That's what these young players are doing. They're looking at these guys are saying, well, what does it take to be successful? But then they are wired so that they know that, hey, I got to maintain what I have, and I have to improve myself. So I'm going to go to a skating coach. I'm going to go to a shooting coach. I better go do yoga so I have my flexibility. and whatever else the team is planning for these young players. And it's not just about doing it off the ice to on the ice. It's in their street clothes. Everything they do is, they're under a microscope. And these guys, and Kirby Dach's like, I need that pressure because I want that, because I can succeed at that. Like, look at. I saw a video from Pezzetta.
Oh God,
like, Pez. See him work today to get the puck?
Did you? And I'll tell you this right now, Turks. I covered the Laval Rocket a lot, and he was actually Joël Bouchard. Everyone gave Joël Bouchard credit for Pezzetta. That's not true. Pezzetta would show up first at practice, and he worked his ass off. He was last off the rink, and he never got his opportunities. They kept going down, but he stuck with it. And even 3 years into the AHL, and he's thinking, maybe I have to change my career. And I mean, he honestly mentioned it at one point. I didn't print it. But he said, I can't give up because I've worked so damn hard to get here. And that's the only reason he's in the NHL, right? And he's got to put that out there, his work. And we saw it today with Raphaël Harvey-Pinard, with Alex Belzile. It's that work ethic that, the hardest thing, though, is not wanting to give up. Did Kirby ever hit that point where he's like, man, am I doing something wrong here? Did you feel like he was kind of, disappointed in himself when he was in Chicago?
Yeah, no, I don't. Not at all. Do me like I felt.
Well, he was 20 years old, right? I feel like they gave up on him way too quickly.
Yeah, that if I'm going to go on record, I felt that without even saying that, I felt that's what he felt like, and obviously it was a disappointment because his younger brother is there.
Yeah, well, yeah, they just mentioned that in the chat. He had just got drafted, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they were looking forward to something.
That's okay. He'll have to come to Montreal. That's fine. There's plenty of space here.
That's exactly it. And so when I look at the definition of perseverance, I got a list of players here from the rosters in the game that we just watched. No, I didn't watch it, but you got, so listen to it. So here's, and I'm biased because the players that I'm going to list are players that I've had the opportunity to work with. So you got Josh Anderson, you got Docker, you got Devo, right?
Yeah.
You got Galley. Well, Galley didn't play, but and you got Pezzetta, and Gooley didn't play. Gooley's another kid.
Oh, you've worked with Caden? Good kid too. When we're talking about guys that love to win, he's obsessed with winning.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you got Bush, you got Fogel, I got CC, Kulak, Broberg, Nurse, and these guys.
So you worked with about half the players today.
Yeah, and I'm the most blessed person in the world, but they come. It's not about teaching; it's about fine tuning. And these guys want it; they want it, or they're not coming.
Yeah,
which is anyway. So I don't mean to deflect off of.
No. Well, and again, obviously, you work with NHL teams, so we don't want to throw any shade at any of them. But I just feel like, when you heard things from Jonathan Toews saying, geez, I don't really like that trade. He came on the record and he's like, hey, I understand what Chicago's trying to do, but it's never a great sign when the captain's like, hey, I think there was a lot of potential left there. Now, Frank Nazar, great. He just scored his first goal in the NCAA. He's going to be a very good player. But I think the Canadiens put their hands on what you'd almost call a unicorn turkey. Tall, good speed, great in transition. And I want to talk about that in transition because someone mentioned to me on Twitter, one of the things I noticed when Dach came into camp was that he was keeping the puck really far away from his body. I don't know why, but it was just for one game or two, and it kind of caught me off guard. Since then, he's been keeping it a little tighter. Some people are saying his stick is too long. Let's talk about that. What is the ideal? It used to be chin, right? Go to your chin. That was it.
Yeah. You if you're like, let's go back old school. Like there was nothing to the chin if you're talking Howie Meeker days.
Oh God. Yeah.
Like we're old school. But and a great example is when Subban came out of junior, when he was in Belzile, his stick was like it was like 4 inches under his chin. And then so in a 10 to 11 year period, him and I were working together, and we took his stick from, and this is just him as an individual. And then I'll get to what a rule of thumb is. But now Subban's stick is up here. So he started with it in junior. He didn't change height.
Yeah.
He didn't grow. So his stick grew with him. He tried things, and it was about what you want to focus on the most and make your tool fit that the best for you. In my case, I feel like everything in hockey should end in a shot, some form of a shot.
Yep.
Unless you get your toilet knocked off the puck, but it should end in a shot. So the shot should be best for you. So wherever that stick height is, now my rule of thumb is this: when your skates are on, I encourage players to have it like minimum just above the chin.
Yeah.
So kind of like maximum at somewhere in here, bridge of the nose. And again, posture comes into play. If these guys are bent over at the hips when they skate, then the stick needs to be a little bit shorter so it's not going in their pocket. Like their hands still have the maneuverability and the ability to do the motion patterns they need to without crossing them over. And you're a little bit, if you're a little bit taller, if your posture is a little bit taller, you're bent at the knees, but your hips are neutral instead of them being way back, then that stick height's got to match. And the lie is a huge critical concern as well, as long as it's flat on the ice. So, and some players don't even know. Some players are like, hey, man, I'll just use a P92 with a 5 lie and an 85 flex, and that's all I need. But it might not be right for them.
Yeah,
and
well,
some players,
same thing with, they talked about Yuri Slavkovsky's stick. They're saying it may be a little bit too long. So you're saying there is no rule of thumb, then it's an individual thing, right?
Yeah, it's an individual thing. But I encourage players when their skates are on to have it somewhere in between just above their chin.
Okay, so that's much higher than the rule of thumb used to be back in the day then.
Yeah.
Is that because of flex, or again, I know you talked about posture and all that, but is that just to take more advantage of the actual equipment?
Well, I think it's all about the technique. Like if you think of this, you can have 10 sticks that are this tall and they have 10 different flexes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't everything can change. It doesn't matter how tall the stick is where it's going to change the flex. And I'm talking about individuals that are fully grown.
Yeah.
We're talking about pros.
So should young kids then, you're bringing your kid into hockey, should they be having those? I see kids with oversized sticks all the time at rinks.
Yeah, no, you're right. They should. Younger kids, the stick needs to grow with them.
Okay.
And so to me, it should be a little bit shorter for them to handle that. And that's the thing. You have a 12-year-old who eats Jolly Green Giant beans for dinner every day.
Exactly.
And he's really, and you know how they have growth spurts and growth patterns?
Well, I was gonna say it's a lot more expensive to buy a new stick every few months nowadays.
Oh man, it's and I thank God for sponsors.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like some of these kids, they don't realize that they're just using it all the time, but they've grown an inch and a half over the season. They've kept the same stick, and now they're like, why is it so short? Like I'm using a shorter stick, but I like it because it's what they've been using. But
yeah,
in actual fact, the stick should grow with them. They should. It's kind of like mimicking what they're doing.
All right. So for those that are just joining us, we're here with Tim Turk, shooting coach. We just went through the list, but he's worked with half the guys that played today: Conor McDavid, Kirby Dach, all those fun people. The game, great games. Montreal Canadiens 6-2. Fantastic stories in this game. We had, unfortunately though, Arbor Jacki, who great story himself. It looks like he has injured his shoulder, so he might be out of action for a little while. And we have today, we saw, it's great because we just spoke about effort, but two guys that worked their asses off to get from the AHL to the NHL, one being Raphaël Harvey-Pinard. But the other one, Tim, I want to ask you about this because can you remember a guy scoring his first goal in the NHL at 31 years old, like Alex Belzile did? Because I can't remember, I forget a lot, but going back to the 80s, I can't think of a single NHL player who scored his first goal at 31 years old.
The first goal of the game, and you know what? He went, and I credit that opportunity to Pez, but
he's been working really hard lately, Pezzetta, yeah.
Yeah, but he had to elevate the puck. He got it bar down, the goalie saw it coming.
Yeah.
And his hands moved so quickly, like hand speed equals puck speed.
Mm-hmm.
The goalie didn't have a chance on that. So who was the last guy? I don't even know.
I can't think of someone that scored that old. Honestly, it's
yeah.
And it's funny. I say that old. I'm almost 10 years older than him. But what was great to me is that when we talk about perseverance, this is a guy who, when he joined Hamilton back in the day, the Hamilton Bulldogs, when they were owned by Michael Andelhauser and they were the Canadiens AHL team, he got a concussion. He went back to the ECHL. He played in Gwinnett. He played in all these southern, United States places where there was maybe 4 people that show up. He ended up being a healthy scratch for the Alaska Aces. His coach at the time was John Werblowski, who, he coached the Ontario Reign and the women's national team. And then he almost gave up because he thought, geez, where am I getting here? I'm 26 years old. I'm in the ECHL and I'm scratched. Now he makes his mark in the NHL. To me, there's so few better stories than that in the NHL. I know Conor McDavid is a great player and Cole Caulfield scores a lot of goals, but seeing a guy like Alex Belzile get his moment it's heartwarming. It's what hockey's all about.
100%, and he deserves it. He deserves it. Like,
works hard.
I bet. Oh, geez, I bet a coconut chocolate bar is probably on the ice with him in Hamilton, guaranteed. But
you have a what? Sorry.
I bet you a coconut chocolate bar. I probably worked with him.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. Well, you know what? I hate coconut chocolate bars. So I'll send that to you. But
that's why I bet him, because if I lose, then I don't care.
There you go, smart man. You got good taste.
but you know, like he right now, the guy should be throwing beers.
Oh yeah. You could tell his teammates were more excited than he was.
Oh yeah. You know, like in that bring, if you want a flashback to a player that hadn't gotten a goal in a long time. You know who I'm talking about? Was it when back in the Habs days, the little teeny guy,
Scott Gomez?
No, the little teeny defenseman that went.
Oh, Victor Mete, and you've worked with Victor.
Yeah, remember? Yeah, he was.
You know what, Victor? I just got to say as an aside, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's genuinely a good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But good, you know, good on Belzile. Like I feel like I want him to keep going. Just keep it going. You know, whether you're producing points or you're scoring goals, or you know, like and the last time I don't know. I think the rules are if you shoot a puck, it hits the goalie and it goes to your teammate, and your teammate puts it in. Does the shooter get a point, Doomy?
It depends on the guy scoring it. That's 100 feet up in the rafters. They're working for NHL.com, right? I mean, my logic is if no one controlled it, it's a rebound. That should be a point.
That should be a point.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we want these kids. I call them kids because they're kids to us, but we want them to keep shooting. Just get the puck to the net, and then, you know, in my opinion, I feel like scoring goals isn't too complicated. Everyone's just got to go to a certain area to get it done.
They just gotta hire a Tim Turk to get it done. That's the clear. All right, so I know there's a lot of people that are probably excited about the Superb Owl competition that's going up. We obviously have Kansas City versus the Birds. I have no favorite. I watch the CFL personally because it's like watching junior hockey. It's craziness. Before we wrap up here, Tim, let's talk about this Conor Bedard a phenom a little bit. I've seen him play. I've heard it from everyone. You've worked with him one-on-one. Is the hype, like we're talking generational hype, this is more hype than we saw for Conor McDavid, more than Sidney Crosby, more than when Malkin and Ovechkin came in. Is it justified? You've seen him up close. Is it justified?
Yeah, 100%. You know, the specialty is, you know, when he releases a puck, nine times out of 10 or 90+% of the time when players shoot to me, lefties bring the puck in towards the right. Like, you know, like say Matthews is a lefty, so he'll bring it inward, and righties bring it inward. And so what Bedard does special is when that puck comes inward, there's certain angles that it comes in at. And it's different for everybody, like I said, players like fingerprints. What Bedard does, a little bit different from Matthews, is he brings it in laterally. So it's straight in. It's not coming in on an angle and then shot. It's coming straight to his
I understand
body.
What you mean. Yeah. Okay.
It's a complete lateral.
Well, and that changes the angle of attack completely.
Exactly. And then if you can get the goalie to set or shift onto one side or displace their hip to one area, you know, with a little thing like that, then you got him. And he does it almost every time.
Every time I speak to you, Tim, I learn a lot, and honestly, because it's so easy for us to say, "What, just take a shot or do this or do that," but there's so much more that goes into it. But when it comes down to it, for these guys to be the experts, it's practice, right? I know it sounds pretty darn cheesy, but it's getting an expert and practice, right?
Yeah. Well, how do you get good at something? You got to repeat, right? And
then
if it's something, yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, I can't thank you enough for having me here.
The fans are loving it in the chat, Tim, because it's stuff that we never hear. We honestly never hear it. And before we go, I want to know, who is the most fun guy you've worked with in your career?
The most fun guy?
Fun, yeah.
Oh, you know what? Like I'm gonna. It's an ex-player, and he used to be an associate coach with the Habs, and he's now an associate coach in Calgary. And that the most like him when it comes to applying things to the players and trusting what you do. He's the most fun guy that I've worked with as a coach, but player wise,
yeah,
I gotta revert to number 11, man.
Brendan Gallagher.
Oh, like that's the kid that I've worked with the longest, and he's like he is such a great example. He makes me better. Like he's constantly challenging everyone to say, hey, like, well, not just okay, I'll do it, but why?
Yeah.
Well, tell me why I need to try that, and how it's going to benefit me, and if it feels okay, I'll apply it, and I'll do it like you just said. Practice, practice, practice it. Like, and that's one individual that is a really good guy, and he's a fun guy too. He, he's serious when he needs to be, but then there's some funny stuff. And it's funny because my personal attitude is when I see somebody, I'm a bear hug guy.
Yeah.
How's it going? And Gallagher's not like that unless it's me.
Okay.
Okay, Turkey, I guess we're hugging. Like that. All right.
Well, I mean, you helped him become one of the best 5-on-5 goal scorers in NHL history at one point there, So I guess you get a hug or two.
Yeah. So it would be Gally. Gally would be one of the funniest.
Yeah, and I spoke to him a little bit before the season. I know that he was so excited because he was finally 100% healthy. So it's just, I know it's one of the most frustrating things for a guy that's his whole life is hockey to be on the sidelines. But as Tim says, he's never gonna give up. Like this guy, heart and soul, and he'll never stop. So I'm excited to see, hopefully, at one point, and I love Brendan Gallagher, but you can't allow him to decide when he comes back on the ice because he'd come back missing an arm. He'd come back, it's just a flesh wound. So let him heal. He's almost too tough for his own good, and then see what they can do. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get a prediction for you. Kirby Dach, how many goals is he at this year? I forget. I didn't even check. Either way,
he's got 5. Does he have 5 goals now?
Kirby Dach. Well, I'm gonna real quick here, just because I know he already beat his career best. So, or is he at 15? What is he at total? 17? I don't know. We're gonna see. The chat's gonna. Okay, so he has 12, 23, 35. So 35 points. When does he have the potential? Let's say next year to hit a 25 goal plateau or 30 goals. It's a lot. That's a big jump.
That's a big jump, but the potential's there, the upside's there. I think that's gonna boil down to configuration,
usage. Yeah.
Usage, configuration, stuff like that. But he has the potential to do it. He can be. I think I'll go out on a limb. I don't do too much, but I mean, I think he could be a consistent 20 goal scorer,
which is a big deal. That's
yeah, it is a big deal. He can do that for sure. But you said, it's usage and configuration and who he's playing with and stuff like that.
Well, I think the one thing we've noticed, and speaking about Brendan Gallagher, what he used to do is that any line he was on, that line magically became better. Kirby Dach's doing the exact same thing now. Any line that he's on magically becomes better. So I think that's been just such a fantastic trade. And you know what? He just seems like such a good guy. So I'm happy. That story about when he got traded was fantastic there, Turkey. I'm glad to hear that he's excited about Montreal because, it can be a little intimidating. But we love our heroes over here. So if he can play the hero, hey, he's going to have a nice long career.
Oh, he will. I know he will. Good kid.
All right. So, yes, thank you very much. I got reminded by Kay in the chat, Paper Dolls, because I'm so old, but you have to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff, and just show your support for Tim, who I think we all learned a lot here. And I think, Tim, at one point, if teaching in schools was this entertaining and had to do with hockey, I wouldn't have skipped half my classes. I would have gone to some of my classes, okay? I mean, I know the 90s were fun, but, anyhow, thank you very, very much, Tim. Honestly, I appreciate it. Where can people find you? And let's say an NHL team is watching right now and they say, we need a guy like Kirby Dach. How can they reach you?
Oh, everybody knows me at the NHL level. I'm blessed with that. No, but the good point, TimTurkHockey.com, and I'm trying to build up a plateau on Instagram too, guys, and so go there, do a like and a follow, and send me a message. I'll get back to you. Might not be right away, but I get back to everybody, man. I appreciate you having me, Doomy. This is such a great thing to provide information to everybody and just talk shop. I'll be here anytime for you.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you right now, the chat, as Claire's just saying, a bunch of them are like, wow, this has been extremely. And what's funny, when I wrote that for the NHL.com when I was with the Canadiens, I rarely got feedback on any of my articles, and it's not because they're bad. It's just, it's a big machine. I had about 50 people that came and said, that little article you wrote about Suzuki and Caulfield's shooting, that was amazing. And I said, well, I basically just wrote what Tim told me, So I thank you for making me look much smarter than I am, Tim. Much appreciated. We'll be back after game over, after the next game. Thanks to everyone in the chat. We love you. cheers. Thanks for listening. And again, to our guest, Tim Turk, hockey guru, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time, Tim.
Thank you very much, Doomy. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. See you later, everybody.
Guys. All the best, everybody.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction.